Yeah. Let me actually throw this link out here. Trying to find DJ Sean Ski. Uh, Inbox me and share him the stream your link. See if we can't get him to pop up. Yeah, most definitely. Uh, So we gonna start off with you know what I'm saying, letting y'all know like it's not a world order up in this motherfucker, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Pseudo Killers. They really ain't killing no pseudos, they just gatekeepers of the mainstream narrative. And you know, Naga, we always gonna bang against the mainstream narrative because anybody who got any common sense know that the mainstream narrative is full of politics and trick knowledge. So with that being said, we gonna run right into this. So we got on they show over there, and he made the foolish statement of saying plasma cosmology is not backed up by science and we just making stuff up and it's not peer reviewed and things of that nature. So this video is in response to that dumbass shit that Anhk West be saying, him and his gatekeeping pseudo scholars who want to parrot the mainstream narrative as if it's empirical evidence and facts, which in fact is not. A lot of it is pseudoscience. A lot of it is mathematics, magics. It just exists in mathematical equations, and it doesn't mirror base reality at all. So we're gonna get into some of those things, but right now we just want to show and prove that plasma cosmology / electric universe is most definitely well publicized. Is most definitely well published. Is most definitely well peer reviewed. Just because it goes against the mainstream narrative and they call it fringe or they call it this does not mean that that's the truth. The truth is these people are highly decorated. A lot of these people put their careers on the line. A lot of these people put their reputations on the line to go against the mainstream narrative to bring you more information that can help enlighten you and further your journey when it comes to science and stuff. So we just gonna get into this. Like this right here is a book by Anthony Pratt. I don't know if anybody y'all are familiar with Anthony Pratt, but he's one of the proponents of electric universe, plasma cosmology, and whatnot. And you see, this is his books right here, Physics of the Plasma Universe, right? And we're just gonna go down here and read about this book again. Like a lot of this stuff is already peer reviewed. You can go purchase this book if you want to. We're gonna get into a list of the peer reviewed papers. We're just gonna read some of the abstracts, read some of the reviews on them and stuff like that, just to get a general knowledge on if this is actually backed up by science or if this is just Naga just talking shit and just making up stuff as we go. So let's just see. It say today many scientists recognize plasma as a key element to understanding new observations in near Earth, interplanetary, interstellar, and intergalactic space in stars, galaxy clusters of galaxies, and throughout the observable universe. Physics of Plasma Universe, the second edition, is an update of observation made across the entire cosmic electromagnetic spectrum over 2 decades since the publication of the first edition. It addresses paradigm-changing discoveries made by telescopes, planetary probes, satellites, and radio and space telescopes. The contents are the result of the author's 37 years of research at Livermore. Hold on. It's 37. This is 37 years, and I want y'all to listen to this. It says the contents. They're talking about the book. It says the content of this book is the result of the author's 37 years research at Livermore and Los Alamos National Laboratory in the U.S. Department of Energy. Now, according
to Alamos,
yeah. So according to this is bullshit. This not backed up by science. According to y'all God, Anhk West and his pseudo killers, right? So according to the pseudo killers, 37 years of research with the Department of Energy and the Los Alamos National Laboratories is bullshit to them. It's bullshit. Clearly, it's bullshit because that's what they said. That we making it up. It's bullshit. It's not backed up by science. Mainstream science don't support it, so it's nothing. Oh, okay, that's interesting. We gonna keep cooking though. It say the book covers topics such as large-scale structures of filamentary universe and the formation of magnetic fields in galaxies, active galactic nuclei and quasars, the origins of the abundant light elements and star formations and evolution of solar systems, and cosmic rays. Chapter 8 and 9 are based on the research of Professor Garrett Virschkart and the reinvestigation of the manifestation of interstellar neutral hydrogen filament as radio astronomical observations are given. Using the data from the Green Bank 100M telescope of the National Radio Astronomy Observer, detailed information is presented for a non-cosmological origin for the cosmic microwave background quadrupling moment. This volume is aimed at graduate students and researchers active in the area of cosmic plasma and space science. The supercomputer and experimental work was carried out within the university National Laboratory Department of Energy and supporting NASA's facilities. Right? Ain't that y'all? That's y'all guy right there, right? NASA. That's y'all man. And y'all sitting here saying that this is all bullshit. Y'all saying this bullshit. Look, let's click on this.
So NASA and Los Alamos are some friend pseudo bullshit, right?
Right. Now look, all I did was click on reviews. That's all I did. I didn't like we didn't go through like a grueling situation where we had to go track down all this shit. All you had to do is go put it in. This is the same site. I ain't went nowhere. It's the same site, and y'all want to say this stuff not peer reviewed, ain't no empirical evidence behind it, and what the fuck do you call all of this shit? What do you call all of it? What do you call all of this? Anthony Pratt, cosmic plasma fundamentals, Berkeley currents in cosmic plasma. I mean, like damn, the electric fields in cosmic plasma, double layers in astrophysics, and you're saying that none of this is all bullshit. This is all bullshit to you. Ain't none of this peer reviewed, huh? Let's read some of the review. It say Physics in Plasma Universe, second edition by Anthony Pratt is a profound guide dedicated to plasma physics in our solar system. But according to y'all, it's bullshit. It's fringe, right? This is the review. It said it is addressed to graduate students and researchers working in the field of cosmic plasma. The book is an excellent manual for a young and experienced scientist interested in plasma physics. The second edition incorporates many recent results and makes the book an up-to-date guide through the science of plasma in the universe. Anyone who has spent time engaging in research or in teaching of the field of plasma physics will know that it contains a wide variety of elements, both in terms of physical theories that support it and the phenomenon to which it is applied. Those looking for eventful, up-to-date guided tour through some of the key sites in plasma universe will find what they're looking for right here. And that's Terry Robinson. That's the Observatory Volume 135. Like the shit's, it is what it is. Like I said, we could go through Anthony Pratt's distinguished career, right? And we could sit here and keep patting him on his back with all of these accolades, you know, a guest physicist at the Max Planck Institute. Like we could sit here and boast on that, but I'd rather get down here onto some of this other stuff like this with the Z pinch. See, this is one of the things that I challenge these hoe ass niggas on, right? Can you prove that gravity has been observed creating fucking stars versus the Z-pinch effect creating stars. Which one of these things you think we're going to be able to prove? I guarantee you.
And I want to know what came first, the concept of galactic filaments or Birkeland currents.
Facts. So again, like I said, here we are. Again, like I said, the dude is highly decorated, way more than any one of us or anything Anhk West can pull up out of his hat. Any lame ass physicist that he want to bring up that wants to go against plasma physics, I employ the motherfuckers to show some type of proof, because these people are doing this shit in laboratories and they reproducing the same things that we see on a cosmic level, and they're not able to do that shit with gravity. So you explain it to us since you so smart. Go click on some of this.
Right, because he basically put his foot in his mouth when you made the statement that you didn't feel like gravity was relevant to the discussion about, you know what I'm saying, the heliosphere and the heliopause.
And it's not.
And it's not.
And
he get up there and preach this scientific literacy shit to y'all though.
Yeah, and then be the most scientific illiterate person up there. You know what I'm saying? I keep trying to tell y'all, most of these people are ignorant once they don't have Google or the internet at their disposal. Most of them. That's why when you see me go on the show, I'm just talking off the top of my head. I know the information because I study it. I'm not just a visitor here. I love this shit. I got a passion for it. You see what I'm saying? Now here's another. It's a techno review, Journal of Technology and Management. Now you're gonna have to sit here and say that these people are full of shit too. You're gonna have to say that these peers that are reviewing his shit is full of shit, right? Because this is what Dr. Ruben Chatterjee is saying, right? Department of Mathematics, right? Is that some bullshit, right? So I'm gonna go down here. So I'm gonna go down here and just read the abstract. Like I told y'all, we just gonna go through and read the abstracts and shit. And I'm just showing y'all right here. You see where it says peer reviewed, right here, down here, where it says peer reviewed, right here, right? So when you hear these dumbass niggas talking about it's not empirical evidence, it is not peer reviewed, just know that's because these weak ass niggas ain't doing they due diligence. So again, as you see, here go the published date, go to issue, the volume. You could cite this shit if you want to. You see what I'm saying? It's all right here. It don't take a lot. It don't take a lot to confirm what we saying. But if all you're gonna do is listen to people ad hom and trash the messengers versus dealing with the information, then you always gonna be confused about what we saying. So let's read this abstract. It's a plasma physics is a state of matter which consists of hey, you mind rolling up? Well, if it say plasma physics is a state of matter which consists of large charged particles. Plasma is usually produced by heating gas so that the electrons separate from an atom or a molecule from which it is made. Upper ionization can be which new? It says the upper ionization can be performed by using high power lasers or microwave lighting. Now notice why they saying this, they still ain't said nothing about no fucking gravity. They ain't said shit to you about gravity yet, right? And everything that they talking about here is astrophysics, particle science and shit like that. They're not talking about no damn gravity. You see what I'm saying? So it says micro lasers, microwave lighting. It says plasma occurs naturally in space and it's in stars and space. Right here. That's what it says. Like I'm not making that shit up. It says in physics, a plasma is an electrical conductor that has the same number of positively and negatively charged particles. What happens when atoms of a gas are ionized? It is sometimes called the fourth state of matter. Unlike rigid bodies, liquids, gases, negative ions are often carried by electrons. See that? It said every work has a reverse side. Positive charges are usually carried by atoms or molecules that do not have identical electrons. In some rare but curious cases, the missing electrons of one type of atom or molecule bond with another. As a result, the positive and negative ions are present in plasma. The most severe cases of this type occurs when the dust is low, but as dust particles, they are added to the state known as plasma dust. The peculiarity of the state of plasma is due to the value of the electrical and magnetic energy acting on the plasma. Affects all. It says affects all types of matter. Listen what it says. Affects all types of matter. This is what we mean by it's a plasma cosmology, it's electric universe. That's what we're talking about. It affects all types of matter except for gravitational attraction. Why is that?
That's because, like Einstein said, that gravity is not an attractive force.
It's not
but
attractive.
Of space-time.
It says because electromagnetic force can work over long distances, therefore plasma acts as a fluid group. Although the particles rarely collide, almost all visible objects in the universe are in a plasma state. Let me read that again. Although the particles rarely collide, almost all visible objects in the universe are in a plasma state. And we just sit here arguing with this dude in the fucking comments. And these are pseudo killer fucking well wishers and ass kissers. And they in here saying the exact opposite of what fucking science say. And they're trying to teach y'all to be scientifically literate. And look at their students.
Irony.
Their students are scientifically illiterate. You see what I'm saying? It says most of them are found in sunlight and stars in this form, in space between the space between stars, between planets and stars, auroras, lightning, and arcades are also plasma, available with both plasma and fluorescent lamps. In addition to the rigid crystalline structures of metal, among many other phenomena and objects, the Earth itself is immersed in a thin plasma called the solar wind and surrounded by a dense plasma called the ionosphere. Look at that. Huh? Y'all just sat here and said, oh, this is bullshit. Like this, according to y'all, this is all bullshit. Like I'm gonna just keep going. These are all peer-reviewed papers. You know what I'm saying? And like here it is. Like I could keep going. Let me see. Let me go to some of this fun shit. Let's look at this right here. Peer review and over-competitive research funding fostering mainstream opinion to monopoly. Now, just the verbiage of that alone. Just the verbiage of that alone is a mouthful, right? So let's unpack this, right? The peer review. Now, again, these niggas are saying this stuff not peer reviewed. They're saying there's no empirical evidence backing up none of this shit we saying. Want y'all to keep in mind. Here go to publication dates. You go to authors. Right? You can cite this stuff if you want to. If you want to, here go to volumes. Right? Let's read what the abstracts say. In our previous work in scientometrics, a numeric model of over a competitive research funding in a peer group assessed grant-based funded system was proposed, and the process was firstly investigated quantitatively. The simulation results showed that the mainstream of a very complicated research topic could obtain monopoly supremacy with only the aid of the mechanism the model described. Here, the number of publications of cosmology back to 1950 are utilized to empirically test a positive feedback mechanism. The development of three main theories of cosmology, Big Bang, steady state, and plasma universe, are revised. The later two, which are non-mainstream opinions, both state in their peer-reviewed papers. There, look what it say. It's talking about plasma universe. It says both state in their peer-reviewed papers that their theories fit the phenomenon that support the standard model. The ratios of publications of the orthodox theory Big Bang approximately satisfy the numeric calculations result of our model. The reasons for the discrepancies between the model and actual situation is discussed. A further question about the controversy is presented. And it's exactly what we fucking keep saying. What do you do when two highly decorated fucking professionals are going at it? Which side do you stand on? Which side do you stand on? I stand with the side that resonate more with me. I stand with the side that resonate more with me. And electricity and light, plasma, resonates more with me than it does with gravity center Newtonian Einstein physics. And that's just me. Let me see. Let's click on here. Again, guys, this is all peer-reviewed stuff. Y'all can go check this shit out. You can cite it if you want. Again, like I said, we just gonna read these abstracts. It says plasma is an open access cross-disciplinary scholarly journal of scientific studies. Look at there. It says a scholarly journal of scientific studies. I thought y'all said this shit wasn't backed up by empirical evidence. It's not backed up by the methodology, scientific theory, right? Bullshit. It says related to all aspects of plasma science, such as plasma physics, plasma chemistry, and space plasma. It publishes reviews, research articles, and short communications and letters. Topics also include experimental and theoretical results, the process and interdisciplinary aspects and applications of relevance of plasma. Our aim is to encourage scientists to publish their experimental and theoretical results in as much detail as possible, so that they can be reproduced. A broad set of topics covered include the electron, ion, plasma sources, basic plasma phenomenon, plasma theory, the modeling of nonlinear plasma dynamics, dusty plasma, complex plasma theory, experiment of complex and nonlinear phenomena, nonlinear waves, instabilities, turbulence, and I mean it just keep going on and on, right? It says plasma as a physical system per se was first discovered in 1879. 1879. That means this is before Big Bang.
And well before Big Bang.
This is before Big Bang. Big Bang need this shit.
Right.
Sir William Crook, who described it as radiant matter, right? The name plasma was coined by the Nobel Prize winning chemist Ivan Langmuir in 1927. Langmuir may be acknowledged as the world's first plasma physicist for his discovery of plasma sheaf phenomenon. The genesis of plasma physicists at the hands of the famous chemist foreshadowed the eventual states of plasma science that exists today. So again, like y'all said, this shit's not peer reviewed, but I mean, shit.
It look like it's peer reviewed to me.
The science community begs to differ with you. Here we got another one. This is from Dave Talbot. Again, Dave Talbot is another, I don't know how you don't know how you're going against it. Again, here we go again. You got Dave Talbot, one of the directors of the Thunderbolt Project, and this is about the Electric Sun. Let's see. It says in the 20th century, the pioneer of plasma cosmology began to identify the crucial role of electrical currents in interstellar and intergalactic space. The electric universe hypothesis extends the underlying principles of plasma cosmology into domains that were at best only partially touched by plasma cosmology pioneers. This paper will present a brief summary of the electric sun hypothesis with pointers of interdisciplinary contributions of others towards the radically new position. So again, it's new. It's new. So yeah, you're gonna always have pushback, but this shit doing a lot. It says now I want y'all to notice this is the very first chapter. This is the very first paragraph. Number 1, introduction, gravity dethroned. Now, why in the hell you think they dethroning gravity? Why would they be dethroning gravity if gravity is such an empirical evidence? If it's a fundamental fucking force of the fucking universe, why is it being dethroned? And I believe the people at the Thunderbolt Project is smarter than Anhk West. Yeah. And so
it's by far.
Yeah, by far.
He is not Hans Elfin.
Right. So I'm gonna take their word over somebody who just parrot what the hell that they learned back in the 70s and the early 80s. You know, so I'm gonna listen to people who actually in that field, who actually working with plasma, which is 99% of the known visible universe. Right, I'm gonna listen to them when it comes to the universe because they're dealing with what the universe is made of.
And nobody on the Pseudo Killers is a Wallace Thornhill. None of them are Walt Thornhill.
Or Heinz Alphen, or Donald Scott. None of them.
They aren't Anthony Perret. None of them.
So it says for well over a century, the commonly accepted view amongst astronomers and cosmologists was unequivocally gravity is king. Gravity rules the heavens. Hold on. What it say? Gravity rules the heavens. It is the ultimate driver behind the evolution of stars and galaxies and stars. Though the core dogma grew more complicated with the event of relative theory, they're more complicated still by the continuous stream of space age surprises. Gravity remains supreme. It is the weakest of the fundamental forces known to science, but the prior theoretical consensus continue to treat gravity as the only fundamental force capable of acting across cosmological distances. The hypothesis reviewed here, however, suggests that the electrical force has a far more significant role in the cosmos than was ever recognized under the standard theory of 21st century astronomy. We now know that space is not empty but filled with charged particles, a sea of conductive plasma. Rapidly accumulating evidence suggests that electrical currents flow through the intergalactic, interstellar, and interplanetary space, contributing significantly, often decisively, to the evolution of the cosmic structure. And today's theorists come to acknowledge this role. The picture of space will forever be changed. The emergent electrical perspective suggests an integral connection to stars and galaxies with their external environment, as observations began to reveal unexpectedly high and strong focused energies in space. Prior theory required that the motor come from the inside that the observed structure, initially either directly or indirectly by gravity. That requirement, in turn, could only dissuade cosmologists from asking the most fundamental questions. It is possible Is it possible that external electrical currents powered by the stored charge in deep space could drive much of the observed structure evolution? Plasma universe. Many details of the plasma universe have been available to astronomers and cosmologists for the last several decades. A new telescope and probe extends the frontier of human knowledge. Space came alive with a full signature of electromagnetic radiation. Technicians and engineers of space age delivered to the theoretical science all the evidence needed to confirm electrical activity across the furthest reaches of space. The new picture removed the assumption of textbooks of cosmology formulated prior to the space age. Now a steady stream of surprises remind us of earlier visionaries, from Christian Berkeley to Nikola Tesla to the founder of plasma science, Hans Alfvén, all of whom anticipated the role of electricity in cosmic events. Most astronomers and cosmologists work with the assumption of formulated long periods, long prior to the space age, and learned to ignore electricity. They did this first by dismissing the possibility that electric currents across the vacuum of space. Then it was discovered that all space is a sea of conductive plasma. The theorists reversed their position, asserting that any charge separation will be immediately neutralized. One false assumption gave way to another. Alfvén and his colleagues recognized the intricate cosmic structure and high energy events in space are witness to electrical currents threading a sea of interstellar intergalactic plasma. For example, we now detect the hum of these cosmic power lines by their radio signals. When currents flow in space plasma, the magnetic fields produced will tend to confine and flow to narrow twisting filaments. That's what we now observe filling in the vacuum of space, as Alfvén himself predicted. More intense focus on current flow, plasma Z-pinch, will often generate explosive electric discharges, and the consequent electromagnetic radiation can include one of the highest energies, the synchrotron radiation, now abundantly observed in space. Intense electric fields remain the only plausible explanation, but when Alfvén predicted galactic synchrotron radiation, astronomers did not respond. Electric fields in space had not yet earned their lexicon. So, you know what I'm saying? Like even right there, we just gonna stop right there and just unpack that whole demo, right? So what they telling you is that this stuff had already been put into play a long time ago. And they've been ignoring this shit for decades. They've been ignoring this shit for decades because they know that this stuff right here will lead you back to the original understanding of the universe, the original understanding of what God is, the original understanding of what energy is. And they know that. And they don't want you doing that. So they keep you on a catch-22 and have you chasing your tail around, seeking out things that don't exist, like dark matter, dark energy, gravity, dumb shit. These right here, these pictures right here that y'all looking at, it said this is Galaxy 3C131 depicted on the right appears as a mere speck within the energy radio signal surrounding it to the left. And so like right here, they talking about this right here, this thing right here is here. This little speck right here, and you wouldn't even recognize that this is what the fuck's happening, but that's what's happening right there. And they're saying that this stream of this thing is like a snake or a dragon of some sort. This thing right here is actually a big, huge electric current. I mean, if you look at the shape of it, it even got the body of an electrical discharge. You see what I'm saying? And all of these galaxies and suns and stuff like that are along these galactic filaments. They all form along those galactic filaments. And these galactic filaments is what's powering these galaxies and these stars and these suns. That's what's powering these things. Is the fact that you got this electric current flowing through here, and anytime an electric current flows, a magnetic field is generated. And when magnetic fields are in close proximity of each other, they compress each other, and they create this thing called the Z pinch. So, and Z pinches is where galaxies, planets, and stars are formed in space. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, they had to get to talking to y'all about uh, nebulas and dust and gravity collapsing dust and all that stupid shit. And it don't make no sense. Intuitively, it don't make sense. At least it don't to me. But here we go. Magnetic universe. And so quite recently, you know what? As a matter of fact, I don't even want to keep just reading. I want to actually give them some electric sun information.
Right. Hey, and the discussion they was having was about the heliosphere, right?
Yes, it was.
Let me read from their guide NASA and what their guide NASA has to say about the heliosphere, and let's see if, when, and how it mentions gravity.
Oh, repeat that. What you say again, cuz?
I said let's look at what their guide NASA has to say about the heliosphere, and see if, when, and how it uses gravity.
You sharing it right now?
I'm about to do it now. Hold on, give me a
Right.
second. Oh yeah. All right. Let me know when I'm sharing.
You good?
Hey, you see that? This is NASA.com components of the heliosphere, right?
Right.
Let's see what it says. I'm gonna try to blow this up a little bit so we can see it. All right, the heliosphere is the outer atmosphere of the sun's. Uh, the heliosphere is the outer atmosphere of the sun and marks the edge of the sun's magnetic influence in space. The solar wind that streams out in all directions from the rotating sun is a magnetic plasma. Read that again. The solar wind that streams out in all directions from the rotating sun is a magnetic plasma, and it fills the vast space between the planets in our solar system. The magnetic plasma from the sun doesn't mix with the magnetic plasma between the stars in our galaxy, so the solar wind calls out a bubble like atmosphere that shields our solar system from the majority of galactic cosmic rays. Remember them talking about that bubble?
Yep.
And the heliotail is something they also mentioned.
Yeah,
So we
and
see we're dealing with,
they ain't bring
yeah,
that shit up until I
yeah,
said,
you brought that up. You're right. As the heliosphere travels through the interstellar medium, it leaves a long heliotail in its wake wave, much like a boat traveling through the water. Bow shot. What the solar wind pushes against the competing force of the stellar wind, a bow or shock wave forms in front of the heliosphere. Termination shock is what that's called. The point where the solar wind begins to interact with the local interstellar medium and slows down is called the termination shock. Heliopause. Another thing they was talking about. It is thought that the heliopause is where the solar wind is not strong enough to push back against the stellar wind and is stopped by the interstellar medium, the helio sheet. The helio sheet is the region between the termination shock and the heliopause where the solar wind slows and compresses as it interacts with the interstellar medium. Voyager 1 and 2. This is what they was talking about. NASA's Voyagers 1 and 2 spacecraft have reached the innermost boundary of the heliosphere twice as far from the sun as Pluto's orbit. Interstellar Boundary Explorer IBEX. NASA's IBEX is the first mission to map the heliosphere at the outer reaches of our solar system, where the solar wind interacts with the interstellar space variation of the heliosphere. The number of cosmic rays entering our heliosphere have been measured since instruments could be placed in orbit above the Earth's protective atmosphere. Scientists monitoring the number of cosmic rays notice that the number varies during the course of the solar cycle.
That's dope.
And during the prolonged solar minimum in 2009, the highest level of cosmic rays in the space age was recorded. Energetic, energetic neutral atoms. Neutral atoms from the interstellar medium can enter the heliosphere and mix with the charged particles of the solar wind. As a charged particle interacts with a neutral atom, the charged particle can capture an electron. It becomes neutral itself. This exchange does not affect its direction or speed, but the particle is no longer bound to magnetic forces that travel in a straight line. Solar wind. The solar wind is a stream of charged particles ejected from the upper atmosphere of the sun. It mostly consists of electrons and protons and varies in temperature and speed over time. These particles can escape the sun's gravity. Read that again. These particles can escape the sun's gravity. First time gravity is mentioned because of their high kinetic energy. The solar wind creates a creates the heliosphere. That's a stream of charged particles. What creates the heliosphere? A stream of charged particles that, mind you, has escaped the sun's gravity. The solar wind creates the heliosphere, a vast bubble that surrounds the solar system. Mapping the heliosphere, NASA's Interstellar Boundary Explorer (IBEX) spacecraft can detect and chart the origins of energetic neutral atoms (ENAs) that reach as far into the solar system as the Earth. From from these data, an all-sky map of the boundary is created. These speculative, with these spectacular maps from IBEX found that most NAs originate in a band or ribbon that spans the entire sky. This ribbon is linked to, guess what, folks? The magnetic field that exists outside the heliosphere in the interstellar medium. That's the end of the article. Now, where did they say that gravity was relevant to the heliosphere outside of the fact that charged particles or solar wind is escaping the sun's gravity?
That's why I said gravity was irrelevant.
It was irrelevant to that conversation. You know what
And
I'm
that's
saying?
why I
And
said gravity was irrelevant. And they shooed me off
they
and
shooed
talk
you
shit.
off and all that talk, all this shit, talk about scientific literacy, and you being scientifically illiterate when you stated a fact that even NASA agrees with. Why NASA not talking about gravity creating solar winds? Gravity creating the heliosphere. Why they not mentioning gravity in conjunction with the heliopause, the interstellar medium, or none of that?
None of this shit.
None of that shit. And NASA follows standard model cosmology like you do, Anhk West. You know what I'm saying? It's like, bro, I get tired of this shit. It's like they be straight trying to gatekeep information for the conscious community, bro. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
I just don't get it. I don't get it. We could go back to this right here. Until quite recently, most astronomers barely gave electricity in space a sideways glance. And yet, through the back door, we now see a growing interest in the role of magnetism across the cosmos. In the rarefied plasma environment of space, magnetic fields are proof of active electrical currents. Even if the proof is ignored, but with surprisingly rapidly, the magnetic universe is now emerged as the permissible expression within the scientific mainstream. Thus, radical turn may prove to be the most promising bridge to the intellectual revolution, eventually making it impossible to ignore the electrical currents without which magnetic universe would disappear. Alvin lifelong experiment laid work foundation for the new approach to the galaxy formation. Galaxies are often dwarfed by the full spectrum of electromagnetic radiation in their surrounding environments, and the source of their energies must be taken into account. In the plasma universe, electric currents will intersect with critical points to drive the electrical vortex, giving birth to spiral galaxies. This envisioned behavior of electricity in space is based on laboratory observations of electric currents and electrical discharge in plasma. Other together with supercomputer simulations of the way charged particles interact under the influence of electrical currents. So,
Hey, read that again about being produced in a laboratory because they seem to think that these plasma cosmologists are just pulling this shit out of their ass.
yeah, and this is what we keep trying to explain to them. Like this shit's been recreated in the fucking lab. They ain't never been able to recreate this shit recreate this shit with gravity ever. Never, ever, ever, never. And that's one of the things I'm challenging you on. Have they ever been able to recreate or reproduce or simulate motherfucking spiral galaxies? It is that with gravity. Have they ever witnessed that shit? No, they haven't. No, they haven't. It says Alvin's long life experimental work laid foundations for the new approach to galaxy formations. Galaxies are often dwarfed by the full spectrum of the electromagnetic radiation in their surrounding environments, and the source of that energy must be taken into account. In the plasma universe, not in the gravity centered one, but in the plasma universe, electrical currents will intersect the critical points to drive an electric vortex. Right, this is what's causing all of the spin. Right, the electric vortex, giving birth to spiral galaxies. The envisioned behavior of electricity in space is based on laboratory observations of electrical currents and electrical discharge in plasma, together with supercomputer simulations of the way charged particles interact under the influence of electrical currents. And this right here is pictures of the discharge in the plasma and what it's doing in the plasma. The space is filled with plasma, so they filled this chamber with plasma. It's electrical discharge in space, so they put electrical discharge inside of the plasma. And this is what happened. The supercomputer simulated the spiral galaxy formation by Anthony Pratt based on charged particle interactions, not gravity. Not gravity. The point was well illustrated by the leading plasma scientist Anthony Pratt in 1986. I was 6 years old. Expert on high energy plasma instabilities and the author of Plasma Universe, Pratt used the supercomputer to simulate behaviors of a cloud of charge, a particle in cell simulation, illustrating the manner in which electrical currents in plasma will generate familiar shapes of spiral galaxies and other galactic structures. Based on the diligent laboratory work spanning decades, Pratt mentor Alvin suggested that electrical currents flow inward along the arms of galaxies, generating an encircling magnetic field on reaching the galactic center. The electric charge that drives the currents is stored in a compact electromagnetic plasmoid, a rotating torus, or a donut-shaped structure, epistodically releasing its stored energy as jets along the galactic spin axis. Alvin concluded that this is how an active galactic nucleus is born. From this vantage point, the electric behavior of a galactic plasmoid, though often hidden by dust, is a confirmation of immense electrical potential. Moreover, in this radical break from earlier theory, a newborn galaxy could in fact be lit by electrical light. The stars strung along the galactic filaments as witness in interstellar power lines or current streams, and that's what they're talking about right here. These galactic filaments, which are called Birkeland currents. It says, "Why do the sun shine?" Let's get into it. See, they reading y'all mainstream science bullshit. We reading y'all plasma. We reading y'all plasma science, which is the science of the sun. We reading y'all real sun science. That's not what they was doing to y'all. They was giving y'all that bullshit. Naga giving y'all that raw shit right now. It says, "Why does the sun shine?" Electrical fields in space leads to a possibility categorically excluded from the settled science of the 20th century. Could be the sun's light and its entire range of electromagnetic activity be partially or due to the flow of electrical currents into and through the heliosphere. In a plasma universe, such currents originate in stored charge and related movements of charged particles along the arms of the Milky Way. The paper, this present paper, will summarize the electrical sun's hypothesis, emphasizing its contrast to the present fusion model. Both perspectives have long history, but by mid-20th century, astronomers have fully settled on one idea: the nuclear furnace of the sun's core. Prior to the emergence of the fusion model, a consensus theory has survived for over hundreds of years. The early view, formulated by Sir William Herschel, early 19th century, held that the heat and light of the sun were due to gravitational collapse of primordial nebula cloud. Textbooks describe the theory as a crowning achievement. As a scientific conception, it is perhaps the grandest that has ever entered into the human mind, wrote by Edward Holden in 1881. But a few decades later, the theory lost its credibility as astronomers realized it could not account for the emerging billion-year scenario of Earth's evolution. It was mathematician Arthur Eddington who, in 1920, announced that the foundation of the new standard model based on the hypothesis release of nuclear energy in the sun's core. Later, in 1938, the astrophysicist Heinz Bethe offered the rigorous mathematical formulation of the envision of fusion, a process for which he won a Nobel Prize 29 years later. The new consensus arose, a conviction that only a fusion reactor at the sun's core could explain the sun's powerful immense heat and light. And now every student in science reads about the discovery as fact. Hans Bethe discovered how nuclear fusion powers the sun and other stars. Today's electric sun hypothesis challenges the sweeping theoretical assumption. Right here, this is a figure of the sun right here. I love this picture right here. It says this is the eruption of the sun due to exclusively to the power source at the sun's core, or is the sun responding to a vastly large electrical environment, right? At one level, the electric sun is a logical extension of the plasma universe formulated by Alvin and his students and colleagues such as Anthony Pratt. But certain tenets of the electrical model rest on works of others. The first argument for a model for a sun actually powered by electricity rather than nuclear fusion was offered by engineer Ralph Jurgens in the 60s and the early 70s. Today's hypothesis is best known through the labors of Walt Thornhill and the works of Thornhill colleague, retired professor of electrical engineer Don Scott, author of The Electric Sky. Others have played roles in the evolution of the concept as well. Since the hypothesis suggests electric currents flowing through the heliopause, the investigation must consider all evidence bearing on this possibility, from the behavior of the sun's visible surface of the corona to Earth's aura, from the worlds of Jupiter, Saturn, out of the boundary of the heliopause. The heliosphere. The presumed limit of the sun's influence. It must extend also to the galactic neighborhood, where subtle but vast currents flow along the galactic orb, and it must even reach beyond the Milky Way to the infallible power now evident in intergalactic space. Virtually all of the consideration discussed here came after the fusion model of the sun had emerged as a consensus of the scientific community. Astronomers consider the most basic issue, the source of the sun's heat and light, to be fully resolved. As we launch satellites and probes into the sun, certainly no one believed that retroactive qualitative assessment of the fusion model was necessary, and no one seemed to blink when the one and only quantitative argument of the sun's nuclear core failed. As the neutrino count came in at a third to a half of the theoretical required figure. The role of qualitative evidence. When theorists proposed a fundamentally new scientific perspective, they were asking that it be considered as a useful starting point. A useful model will spell out a proposed relationship between cause and effect. It will typically involve a broader interdisciplinary range of evidence, causes or hypothesize, and the claim effects are named. The new models can then be generalized to see how well its underlying assumption correlated with more detailed observations and a broader range of measurements bearing on its questions. With increased speculation in science, the most costly mistake will typically involve the failure of generalize failure to generalize the qualitative argument to weigh the predictive power within the sufficient broad field of view. Carried out properly, this essential phase will throw a spotlight on the weakness or outright failures of the theory if they exist. This is where we look for contradictions, things that don't fit the underlying assumption. Probably wrong if incorrect, is the idea when stating a theory. In fact, the most useful qualitative argument would be readily falsifiable, and the question of correlation between theory and observation can be explicitly tested against a full range of critical data. There can be no rational justification for short-circuiting the qualitative phase. In the case at hand, where the theory affects how we see the celestial environment as a whole, the generalization of qualitative argument is indispensable, requiring that the field of view be every bit as broad as the theory logical implications. A more narrow view will virtually guarantee at least some of the falsified observations, if they exist, will be ignored. In 1950, the sun's hypothesis of nuclear furnace rested entirely upon mathematical foundation. I want y'all to listen to that. The sun's nuclear furnace rests entirely upon mathematical foundation. What does that tell us?
Mathematics.
Exactly. Virtually no qualitative tests of the conjectured nuclear furnace were yet in hand, and the scientific mainstream was unaware of the plasma universe and the profound role of electric currents in space. Today, after decades of solar exploration and quantitative accord that a theorist had hoped for is glaringly absent. To see that this is so, it is also necessary to review the stream of surprises arising from the exploration of the sun, a collective explanation point to the gap between theory and observation. Nothing fit the original expectations. The original model did not anticipate and was never able to explain the specular acceleration of charged particles away from the sun. No one envisioned the impossible increase in temperature with the distance upward from the solar surface accumulating to 2 million kelvins at the solar corona. At the dawn of space age, the complex electromagnetic activity of the sun's photosphere was unknown. An electrical plasma torus around the sun would have seemed quite ridiculous. Polar jets had never entered the imagination of solar theorists. Sunspot penumbra were supposed to be convection and currents, not electric currents, ropes guided by magnetic fields, and established dogma exemplified in the work of the mathematician Sidney Chapman. Categorically excluded the possibility that Earth's aurora could be caused by electric currents from the sun penetrating the upper atmosphere. The story yet to be announced is more than 50 years of space investigation produced only anti-correlations to the supposedly settled science of the sun. And again, bro, like we giving y'all that raw shit. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna just like I said, I'm gonna just cap it right here for right now because I want us to dig off into some more of this.
Right. And
Electric.
and like you said earlier, because that's like uh hypothesis that we've shared for the last few years that gravity isn't a fundamental force. You know what I'm saying? We
Right.
we shared that hypothesis for a few years, and Anhk West might call us pseudo when we say that. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? But we have science today in 2025, years after we first hypothesized this, saying the same thing.
Right.
Look, check it out. It's like we don't really have to go too far into this so we can get to the video. But I just want to show y'all the screen sharing.
Yeah.
Look, this is from April 21st, 2025, right? Titled New Theory Suggests Gravity is Not What? A Fundamental Force. New theory suggests gravity is not a fundamental force. Why? A new theory proves a new theory proposes gravity isn't a fundamental force, but emerges from quantum electromagnetic interactions. Let's say that again. Gravity isn't a fundamental force, but emerges from quantum electromagnetic interactions, potentially reshaping our view of space-time itself. This is what's coming out this year. A fresh look at gravity challenges long-held assumptions about one of nature's most familiar yet puzzling forces. In a new study, two researchers argue that gravitational attraction is not a basic force at all, but an effect that emerges from deeper quantum processes tied to electromagnetism. So
Uh,
now I got making this up, right? Now I gotta be pulling this shit out our ass or what? In a new study, Two researchers argue that gravitational attraction is not a basic force at all, but an effect that emerges from deeper quantum processes tied to electromagnetism. Now, it hasn't been confirmed yet, but we're just saying there are researchers in the field of physics coming to the same conclusions that we are, and we ain't got no lab. If confirmed, the theory could help explain mysteries that have long resisted standard models, including the origins of dark matter and the energy accelerating the universe's expansion, which you just kind of touched on in what you read from Electric Universe, Plasma Cosmology. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? The work, the work published in the Journal of Physics Communications. Now, it's not, it's not published in the Book of Naga. This is from the Journal of Physics Communications, Anhk West. It reimagines gravity not as a force stitched into the fabric of space-time, but as something that arises from quantum level behavior of ordinary matter. Roots Katzner of the University of Maryland, not Naga University, Roots Katzner of the University of Maryland, and Andreas Sclatter at the Quantum Institute in New York developed a framework in which space and time themselves are not fundamental but result from electromagnetic interactions between charged systems like atoms and molecules. I mean, I don't even really need to go no far. I just want to show y'all that when Naga be making these statements, you know what I'm saying, we're
Right.
not pulling this out our ass, man. We're using our own deductive reasoning, being intuitive when we research the science, you know what I'm saying, and developing our own ideas based on our studies. You know what I'm saying? And as you can see, we've held this hypothesis for a few years, but well, this year in 2025, actual physicists are beginning to catch up with Naga, West. That's what comes from minds that don't just parrot and regurgitate the mainstream narrative.
Yep. That's true. You got to be able to think outside the box. That's what real science is about. Real science is about imagination. It's not about this rigid uh, box that you try to put everybody in. Like, yeah, I got to release the science. You got to release that shit and stop being a gatekeeper, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to let people learn and build and grow. And they can't do that if all you're doing is shoving mainstream down their throat as if there's nothing more else to learn but what the mainstream teaches you, which is fucking utterly ridiculous.
Right, right. You know what I'm saying? Because you try to throw this mainstream standard model cosmology stuff at us, you know what I'm saying, as if we don't know it, as if we haven't
Yeah,
studied it too. You know what
yeah.
I'm
I
saying?
study. I got more
Right.
years studying that shit than I do this shit.
It's just the difference between Naga and you so-called pseudo killers is we taking these standard model cosmology and the mainstream narrative and brushing it up against something. You know what I'm saying? Of course, it's going to prevail if you're not testing it against anything else. You know what I'm saying? If you're not testing it against anything else, of course it's going to prevail. And from the looks of it, Anhk West, you guys aren't testing the mainstream narratives against anything outside of your own belief.
Nah, they not. And like, and they'll sit there and tell you that that's the reason why they can't go no more in depth about none of the stuff they talking about. That's the reason why they got to sit there and keep clicking and reading from Google or whatever site they looking because they don't even know that information, bro. You know what I'm saying? Baba, click on it. This right here is Donald Scott, and this is the introduction to Electric Sun. I'm just gonna play a little bit of this. I'm
Right.
not gonna do the
That
whole
that's
thing.
that's the man behind the name that was just mentioned and what you were just reading. Cause I
Oh
remember
yeah,
his name was mentioned, Donald Scott.
yeah. He's one of the pioneers.
Good morning. I have a tough job here this morning because, as Adrian has said, I know that some of you are very familiar with my work. You've watched everything I've done, and so I'm probably going to bore you to tears.
Shout out to electric.
And others perhaps have never seen anything about this electric sun thing. And for them, it's easy to deliver a complete snow job, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to try to take you through an introduction, son of the Electric Sun 101, and well, we'll see
Hold on right quick.
how far we get. I hope that I'm able.
My bad, Dr. Donald Scott. You know what I'm saying? I got to say that doctor part in front of your name. Just for the viewing audiences, they don't just think you some crackpot up here talking about your electric sun model, Dr. Donald Scott.
Right.
Able to convince you of certain things. You can never prove anything in science because tomorrow morning you can get new data and it'll disprove everything you said yesterday. But you can make some strong supporting evidence. And if you can come up with strong supporting evidence for what you are trying to present, and then get more supporting evidence to support that evidence, the wall begins to get higher and tougher to break down. Can't prove it, but you can get close.
Anyway, we all know what that is. That's a picture that was taken about 11 months ago during our last EU conference. This was taken from, I think, Idaho or Oregon, because the path of totality went right across the states, and it started up there in the Northwest. That little spot there in the lower left, that's not an anomaly. That's the star Regulus in Leo. This is a fine image. You look at that and you say, what is that? Well, of course, that's the sun. Well, is there a corona? Yes, that fuzzy stuff is certainly the corona. And if you look at it a little more intensely and carefully and try to be analytical about what you're looking at, you realize that the corona doesn't spray out isotropically like the fingers of your hand or like the Japanese Navy battle flag, if you remember what that looked like. But rather, these rays, some of them come together. They form almost a triangular shape. They're called coronal caps. Some do diverge, like the Japanese battle flag, but these others come together and form those caps.
Why? Classical astronomy has no answer for that. The electric star model does. And several other things that the electric star model can explain. So I'd like to go and present a few of those. You can see those are, again, this coming together process that's called a coronal cap. And so if you Google coronal caps, there's another one out here, obviously. Another one here. Why do they happen? What are they? Well, first of all, the whole corona, of course, is plasma. It's positive and negative charges out there floating around in space. The classical astronomy view is the sun is a stove. It doesn't burn wood, it burns hydrogen. Hydrogen converts it into helium, but it's still a stove. Now, I had at least a wood stove in my previous home. It never radiated any electrons that I could find. You look at a candle, that doesn't radiate electrons either. So something's very different about this animal than the classical astronomy model would have you believe. Of course, the question is, if it is electrical, where does the electricity come from? Everybody always says, well, okay, you're talking about these electrons. Where do they get in? Well, there was, past several flights of the SOHO, several passes of the SOHO satellite came up with documents with pictures, drawings that look like that it is becoming clear that the surroundings of the sun are very different near its poles. And that's, we think, where the electrical input path is. We're not sure because SOHO, none of the probes have ever been able to get right over the top of the sun. We'll talk about that in a minute. Anyway, one of the things we have to clean up right away, I think, is this idea of electricity versus gravity. And some people have said, we had a representative from Scientific American, and he said, well, you just trying to tell me that gravity doesn't exist out there, it's all electricity? No, that's not what we're saying at all. What Wall is saying is that electricity and gravity are really the same thing. Gravity is an electrical phenomenon. So nobody in the EU
I just read
says
from
that
the source.
electricity replaces gravity. It moves it out and it moves in. No. What is true is that the electrical forces between two electrons is roughly 10 to the 36th power. That's a number 1 followed by 36 zeros. That's even bigger than the national debt. That number is how much stronger the electric force is than the gravitational force between two similar particles, like a positron and a positive nucleus and an electron. Anyway, let's see. There we go. Yeah, gravity is always present, but when electric forces are also present, we can usually ignore gravity. And it's just that simple. Gravity never goes away. It's there, always. But it can be relatively unimportant, so that, for example, you don't have to put your coffee maker, plug it into the wall at a higher point on the wall than the coffee maker is, so that gravity can pull the electrons down. You can plug that thing down 2 stories down and it'll still heat the coffee. Has gravity now been displaced? No, it's still there. So that's the thought I want to get across, that everything is still there, except at times electric forces can be shielded. So you can build yourself a copper room, and gravity can't be shielded. Gravity will go right through into anything, into a cave, into a copper room, any place. Build a copper room and the electric field won't get in there. So there's a couple of advantages of E&M, electricity and magnetism. One is they both can attract and repel, and gravity can only attract. And you've got electric forces and you've got magnetic forces, and each of those can both attract and repel. So you've got 4 times the possible mechanisms in the electric universe than you do just, if you say nothing there but gravity. How do you make things repel each other with gravity? Well, there's all sorts of, well, they hit together and then rebound. No, well, I don't think so. Anyway, let's get to business. I want to tell you about the sun as much as I can in the 45 minutes that I have. There are 3 major layers of the sun's surface. And right off the bat, that's wrong. There is no such thing as a surface. But there are certain layers, and one of them, the so-called photosphere, which is the yellow at the bottom, of course, is not transparent. It's not even translucent. You can't see through it. So people think of the top of the photosphere as being the surface of the sun. Well, it isn't really, but visually it is. So these 3 layers, the corona, the chromosphere, and the photosphere, are the things I'd like to talk at least briefly about. And where the action is in the photosphere. And I'd like to talk to you about some of the things that we see and how we model those 3 layers to explain some of these things that we see. This is the so-called temperature inversion problem. There's all sorts of names that have been given to it. But what that plot is, of course, is just a plot of distance out is the horizontal axis. So this right here, 0, is really taken as the bottom of the photosphere. So you come up through the photosphere, that's about 1,000 kilometers, and up through the chromosphere and up beyond into the corona. And the temperature goes wacko. It starts to decrease, just like from your wood stove, just like as you back away from the radiator. It reaches a minimum, but then, strangely, begins to rise slightly through the chromosphere and then goes up here to something like 2 million Kelvin. That's hot. Well, what do you mean temperature? Temperature is a measure of excitation, random motion. So if the plasma is relatively quiescent, we say the temperature is low. And you can talk about the positive ion temperature in a plasma as being different from the electron temperature in a plasma. Sure, why not? Because the protons are about 1,800 times heavier than the electron, and so they're tougher to move. The electrons can move around, so it's very typical to have electron temperatures that are 2 or 3 times the temperature of the protons in exactly the same plasma in exactly the same area. But the question is, what makes this thing go bananas like that? And all sorts of theories have been put forward. In my mind, in any rational analysis, they don't work. And still the question is, why? I'll try to answer that in a minute. The solar wind is another one that is a problem. The solar wind is a flow of charged plasma particles coming outward from the sun, and it speeds up to about 1 million miles an hour. That's about 800 kilometers per second as it passes by Earth. And it pumps energy into the Earth's radiation belts, and as Wall pointed out, that both of our heroes, one hero of both of us, I should say, is Christian Birkeland. And he discovered this or postulated at least the existence of this flow of charge, which of course a flow of charge is a current from the sun that would power the aurora. We now know that it doesn't just do it to Earth, it does it to Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune. And I think lately, it was the last week, one of the moons of Jupiter, or Triton, which is that of Jupiter or Saturn, but some of the bigger moons also have auroras. And so they get powered from the same source, the sun, flows of charges from the sun. And the solar wind comes in 2 different varieties. That's not well known by the public, but it's true. There's a fast solar wind and a slow solar wind. And they come from different locations, different places. And of course, the big question is, why? I think the electric sun, I'm convinced the electric sun model will give the answer to that question. Anyway, to get down to business here, before my 45 goes out, the classical plasma discharge has been studied for decades in the electronic plasma laboratory. I won't go into detail about these plots, but obviously what happens, or I think it's obvious, you take a glass tube and you stick an anode, or that is to say a cathode or anode pair in here. These 2 pieces of metal are hooked to wires that go out through the glass tube. You evacuate the tube, let a little bit of gas of some sort in. The classical experiments, that was always one of the unreactive noble gases, xenon, neon, that sort of thing, because they didn't want to get any chemical effects that they couldn't explain. So they had something that was inert. And then look and see what dynamics happened. And so they looked and they found when you put a positive voltage on here and a negative voltage on here, what happens? Well, electrons come up the wire. Everybody should realize nothing flows in a wire except electrons. No positive ions flow in a wire. So what the early days, all the attention was put on the cathode. How are we going to make a piece of metal such that if we put a voltage between the cathode and the anode, positive over here, negative over here, we can get the electrons to jump out of the metal into the chamber? That's a trick. How do you get an electron to jump out of the wire? And they were able to do that by various tricks, like putting filaments and heating up the cathode, and also making the cathode out of thoriated tungsten and a few other things. But eventually what they did was they found that typically you get this sort of structure. There was a rather bright glow next to the anode called unimaginatively, the anode glow. And we got the positive column, which was a form of plasma very much like the typical neon sign, eat at Joe's. The stuff that's inside, that's plasma in the so-called glow mode. And then out here near the cathode, there was some other stuff. We're not too much concerned right now with this because what we have used, we've adopted the idea that Ralph Jurgens came up with, and he's an engineer, 1970, said that this is the way the sun works. And the anode glow that we see here are anode tufts that appear on the anode, and that's what the photosphere of the sun consists of. Well, that's a leap, but let's see if it makes sense. Let's see. I guess I should probably say that there are three kinds of plasma. Not kinds, but three different modes that plasma can take on: dark mode, glow mode, and arc mode. Arc mode, everybody knows, that's lightning. When you scuff your feet across the floor and touch the doorknob, you actually see the spark. That's actually arc mode plasma. The positive column, the glow mode, that's the eat at Joe's, that's the fluorescent signs. The dark mode, there's nothing mysterious about the dark mode. The ionosphere of Earth is dark mode. I used to have a ham radio operator's license, and I could bounce my signal off of the ionosphere, the F2 layer, and I could talk from America to England, and I did so. That radio signal, if there were no ionosphere there, would just simply go out in space and nobody in England would hear me. So clearly it's there. It is also obviously there when it switches into the glow mode, and that's what we call the aurora. So there are these three different modes of plasma. Let me get just a slightly bit technical, and I hope to make this clear to you. This is a plot of, think of yourself in that tube. You're at a point in the tube. At any point in that tube, there are two operative quantities that are important. One is, at that point, there's a force, an electrical field, an E field measured in volts per meter, which is the vertical axis, is the force on every unit plus charge in that, wherever it may be in the plasma. The horizontal axis is the other variable, and that's at that same exact point, what is the current density? A current density, that's how many amperes per square area. Think of it as, think of a cross-section of a flow of a river, and you're thinking about a certain liter of water coming down the river. And if there's lots of water per square meter of the cross-section, then that's an indication of the flow. You've got to multiply that by how many square meters there are, and then you have the total flow of the river. So the current density is measured along the horizontal axis. And you can see this is not moving from one place to another in the plasma. This is how one single unmoving point can vary the force on it and the current density on it. And what's interesting, and this is a long-winded way of saying it, is some of these, like from this point F to that point G, and from this point H to that point J, the slope is negative. Well, if you were to plot this same plot for a resistor would go a straight line that begins at the origin and just goes straight up. If it were a high-valued resistor, lots of ohms, that says it takes lots of voltage, lots of E field to get just a little bit of current to flow. So that a high resistance would have a very steep curve. A low resistor would have a slopey curve like that. And so the point is, well, so what? What does this negative slope mean? It's called negative dynamic resistance. That says that if I'm at a point that's operating somewhere around right in there, I, the charge, can reduce the force that I'm experiencing by increasing the current density. In other words, the point isn't going to move. The point's right there. But at that same point, if we can change my shaky hand here, the E field, the electric force on it, from this point down to, say, this much, we've decreased the E field, and we do that at the cost of increasing from here to here the current density. Think of that yourself. How do you increase the current density at a point in a plasma? You reduce the square area through which the current's flowing. In other words, the plasma naturally of itself, in order to, if I push on it, it'll shrink back. It shrinks back by forming filaments. So the places on this plot, like that have negative slope, are places where plasma naturally tends to form filaments. This one we all know about. That's the lightning bolt. There's arc mode plasma. You can see it down there, J to K, which looks like a sheet in the old-fashioned movie projection devices. They would put two electrodes together and pull them apart, and there would be a sheet of flame, really. That's a sheet of arc mode plasma, not an arc. But when the current density is at the low range of the arc mode, arcs tend to form. Over here, when you're at the low current density range of glow mode, filaments tend to form. That's the coronal caps. If you sit and think of yourself, where do those coronal caps form? They form at the outer edge of the corona. That's the low current density position, in close to the sun. There's it's a higher density because, there's a spherical geometry. So if you're close to the sun, the area through which your current is passing is much smaller. So as you go out to the end of the corona, the current density gets lower. And so going outward from the sun is coming this way, sort of from right to left on that diagram. And so that's why along in here, right at the outer edge of the corona, before the corona shuts off, before it goes beyond that, it's dark mode. It's on its way to Earth, near Mercury at least. So there's an electrical reason for the existence of those coronal caps. That's easy. Astronomers, how come you didn't figure that one out? Because it exists, electricity doesn't exist, and if it does, it doesn't do anything. Yes, it does. Anyway, here's the picture of the photosphere, and those are the granules that the astronomers call photospheric granules, like sand grains. They're not, they're photospheric tufts. That's a movie. Can you see it going? Can you see it moving? Focus on any one of those guys, and you can see them getting bigger, brighter, and then shrinking away to zero. You see it? So that's another question. Why do these little globs of arc mode plasma, the so-called plasma tufts, the anode tufts, why do they grow, and what kills them? Why don't they just stay there forever? Next slide. Well, one of the upcoming slides. Anyway, it's plasma in the arc mode, and they come and go with time. Oh, the temperature, by the way, is about 6,000 Kelvin. That's the temperature of one of the tops of those tufts, the real intense plasma, arc mode plasma. Here's the guts of Jurgen's electric sun model. Let me see if I can get you through it intuitively. The top graph is a graph of the voltage, like you would measure with a voltmeter. If you come this point here, this is distance out, away from, radially out from the sun. So this point here is zero radius. Well, it doesn't mean the center of the sun. It means just below one of those plasma tufts. The what should we call it, the apparent surface of the sun, if you will. And if you measure the voltage as you come out, this is one of these plasma tufts. You come up through, as you come up from the bottom of the sun into the bottom of the tuft, the voltage goes up. Then it's pretty constant as you come up through the tuft. And as you break out of the top of the tuft, all of a sudden the voltage goes down. The analogy to this, if you don't want to think about voltage and current and electricity, think about the cross-section of a hill. This is really the potential energy. Voltage is indeed potential energy. But if you want to think of a bowling ball on a hill or a hockey puck on top of a frozen ice rink up on the top here, these hockey pucks can go around and maybe hit each other. The random motion of the temperature of them will maybe cause one or two to ricochet off, and maybe one might come out here to a point closer to the surface than A. What will happen to it? It falls off the hill. If a hockey puck gets out to the right of point B, down the hill it goes. Well, that's what happens to the positive ions. And if you think of the interior of the sun as being a huge reservoir of positive ions, they are hitting into each other. They want to get out. Well, they need to have enough energy to get up to the top of the hill. If they just go bang and bang and back and forth in here, they don't get out. But if they come up high enough to just make that, then they can go gliding across the top of the voltage hill, or you can think of it as a reservoir. This is a dam at the end of the reservoir, and if the water is high enough in the reservoir, it can just slick over the top of the dam and then go down the chromosphere. That's a hill. And if that happens, think of the water analogy. What happens is that this is like a water slide. Not only in an amusement park, but really in hydraulic laboratories, they have water slides and they study the hydraulics of what water flow, what happens. The water on a water slide becomes almost transparent. In fact, there's some really nice.
You hear me?